You're your greatest champion. You're your most loyal supporter. You're the author of your own story. No one's opinion of you should ever carry more weight than your own. Loving yourself isn't selfish, it's essential. It's the foundation of every step forward, every goal achieved, and every ounce of happiness you can create. When you love yourself, you speak kindly to yourself, even in moments of failure. You move on from mistakes with grace, knowing they don't define you, they refine you. Loving yourself means fueling your body with the nourishment it deserves, strengthening your mind with positivity, and building a life rooted in self-respect and joy. Remember this, being full of love for yourself is not arrogance, it's power. The more you love yourself, the more love you have to give to the world. So stop the negative self-talk, silence the inner critic, and replace it with kindness, gratitude, and encouragement. You deserve nothing less than your own unwavering belief. Coming at you from Kaiji Vision Podcast Studios in Stamford, Connecticut. Welcome to episode 4 of the Dialed In Podcast with Mark Vaccaro and Paul Diaspera. We can add a little claps in the background. All right, now we're queuing it up. We're dialing in our intro. So how you doing, bro?
You should get a soundboard and cue some sound bites in there, some cheering, some fan cheering.
That's what we got, Mr. Valenzuela. By the way, we are back contigo like my coffee cup. Contigo means together in Spanish, right, Mr. Valenzuela?
That is correct.
Thank you. Thank you to, who's that song? I want to be contigo, dance contigo. Anyway, Mark, I want to start off by giving a list of shout outs to some of the people in my life who are getting infected with the dialed in bug.
Wow.
My sister Lauren and her husband Steve are dialing it in. They are utilizing the diet and the list of ingredients that I sent to them, and a lot of the things we've been talking about here. A couple people from work, Miss Calcano, Miss Chung, my friend Keith, my friend Ryan. Ooh. You know, we just started, but I can just feel it. I feel the indicators are speaking loudly to me, and they're telling me to keep going and keep going harder.
Love it. Infecting.
Yes. And last night I went to a Christmas party. I know last episode or one of the previous episodes, we talked about staying dialed in on the holidays. Last night was a Christmas party. And I think it's important to stay dialed in throughout these events, right? Like we all have these events.
Yeah.
We all have get-togethers. We all have parties. Yep. Where we're eating and drinking is the foundation of it for many, right? And they happen a lot throughout the year. And I think if we could stay dialed in those, it doesn't have to be about the food there. It can be about the relationships and the interactions. And we just have to remove ourselves from being so centered around the comfort food.
Yep.
So last night, there was a nice spread of hors d'oeuvres and other items that in previous years, I would indulge in. But last night, they had grilled chicken, they had steak. It came with like 5 different sauces. I just poured lemon on it. It wasn't organic, so that's my version of cheating. Had some veggies. Didn't dip it in the ranch because it got the seed oil in it. But that's kind of how I veer off the path for me, is by eating like the non-organic stuff. And I did eat probably a little more than I wanted to or thought I should, but I didn't eat any real junk last night. So that was good.
Well, there you go. As long as you're preparing for it, you're going into something like that. It'd be a quick fix if you prepare to, what you're going to eat.
Yo, GPT, can you say in your best podcast voice what the Dialed In podcast and...
If there's anything else I can help with.
Okay, actually, I appreciate that. Could you tell me in your best podcast voice what the Dialed In podcast is about and our mission?
Come on, GPT.
Welcome
to the Dialed In podcast, your launching pad to achieving your wellness breakthrough. This show is all about inspiring, informing, and empowering you to discover your complete health transformation. We focus on the 4 essential components of wellness: physical, mental, emotional, and social health. Our mission is simple: to help you optimize your health so every part of your life operates at its highest potential with intention and purpose. From clean eating and lifelong fitness to cultivating a positive mindset and building lasting relationships through love, kindness, and gratitude, we're here to guide you every step of the way. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement to help you stay fully dialed in to your best self. Let's do this.
Wow. Wow.
Did you get chills as GPT was spitting that?
I feel like he knows us.
I feel like he knows us well.
Yeah.
I think we can end the show now.
Yeah.
I know we initially, this is a clean eating, I think primarily clean eating based. But as soon as you start going down that road, and I don't got to tell you, you're being a personal trainer, AKA a mental performance coach to everybody.
Yeah.
We have to connect all these other elements. It can't just be about the clean eating, because then it gets into the mindset and the perspective, and it goes so much deeper than that.
Yeah.
So I love that we've narrowed in on like the 4 components of health. I think it gives us unlimited legs to talk about so many different things.
Yeah, it's really important. It could be overwhelming for people, so I try to really treat that component just as important as how much you're eating, and what are you eating. It really, you have to pay attention to the emotional relationship with all of this.
Yeah.
Otherwise, this isn't going to go very far. And I want people to feel happy, in this transition, not stressed and discouraged and abrasive. So you have to focus on all 4 of those things that we're talking about.
Sure. So I want to kind of establish that framework and share, I think, some real valuable, helpful information. I want to start with, and we'll start with the love first, and then of course we'll deep dive into ingredients and clean eating and everything else.
Cool.
But loving yourself, man. People need to love themselves more.
Yeah.
And also I think they need to be taught how to love themselves.
Yeah.
And it has to be practiced, right? So I want to talk about, just to start off this podcast, about loving yourself. And then I'm going to get into 3 ways to be more happy. All right. So just starting off with loving yourself, and interrupt me anytime. If you hear something that inspires you, you want to elaborate on it, I love it. But we're going to take them to church now.
Cool.
Number 1, being your biggest champion. Nobody should believe in you more than you do. Right? You should have that unwavering confidence in your abilities, in your potential, and in your worth. And prioritizing your opinion of yourself over anyone else's is something that matters most. Right? You can't have other voices become your number 1 voice. You have to be the loudest one.
Yeah.
Speak and think kindly to yourself. Treat yourself with the same kindness that you would a loved one. We have to replace negative self-talk, right? Things like, I'm so stupid. First of all, I don't say words like I don't say words stupid. I don't say dumb. I don't say idiot. I'm an elementary school teacher. These are all bully words.
Yeah.
Yet adults use them pretty frequently.
Yeah.
Right? So eliminating those words, but replacing self-talk, I'm so stupid, with I'm learning and improving every day.
Yeah.
Positive self-talk. We talk about this with officials, like in getting plays right and how to deal with mistakes. And in the moment, you got so many thoughts racing. My thing is positive self-talk only. 100% of the time in your mind should be positive self-talk.
Yeah.
If it's littered in the negativity, if you're getting that other voice creeping in, then there's more work that we have to do on our end.
Yep.
So replacing the negative self-talk is huge. Kindness through action. Right? We talk about being kind to yourself, speaking nice, thinking nice things. But what about diet? What about what you put in your body? What about how you treat your body? Exercise. So strengthening your body and mind, prioritizing exercise, rest, mental stimulation, being able to nourish yourself with nutrient-dense whole foods that fuel your energy and longevity. It's part of being kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Loving yourself isn't just about what you say. It's about consistently what you do for your well-being. Another big part of loving yourself is accountability and owning your mistakes without self-judgment.
Yeah.
There's a balance between I'm accountable, but I'm not crushing myself. I'm not dissing myself.
Yeah.
That's a very fine line, I think.
I almost did that last night because I didn't go for a run.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna go for a run, and it was really like messing with me that I'm like, I'm not gonna go on this run, and I was beating myself up over it, saying bad things to myself.
Like what?
Just like, you said you were gonna go run, you got to go run. You know, you said you were gonna do 3 this week, so I did 2. I did feel a little tired, and I was, watching my daughter take a bath, and I was just like, and I just snapped out of it. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna stay in, just relax. It's not a big deal, and I'm happy I didn't, because I woke up and I was sore this morning more than I thought I was gonna be from going to jiu-jitsu. So I think I needed the rest. I was feeling tired, but I was almost forcing myself in a negative way to go out for the run just to go.
Mm-hmm.
But I was beating myself up over it for a little bit. Yeah.
And sometimes it's just reframing the language. I mean, you were just, what you were just trying to do is motivate yourself.
Yeah.
So it's just important to motivate it with empowering messages.
Yeah.
And not, disses.
Yep. I was dissing myself.
So owning your mistakes without judgment. Acknowledge your mistakes without harsh criticism. Mistakes are opportunities. That's where the growth mindset comes in. Let go of negative self-judgment. Instead, ask, what can I learn from this? How can I improve? And also, I think we hold on to our past errors, our past mistakes, our regrets. We hold on to them for a very long time, and it's hard for many to let go. Remember, holding on to those errors, it's only going to limit your progress. Moving forward is self-love in action.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing I want to talk about is growing up, I heard a term called, he's full of himself.
Yeah.
He's so full of himself.
That's been said to me my whole life.
And I'm like, wait a second. I'm a little confused. He's full of himself. Shouldn't we love ourselves? So I think the issue was that term, he's full of himself. Usually it was somebody with an ego and communicated unkindly and rude.
Yeah.
So loving themselves was getting blamed, much like cholesterol, eggs are being blamed for cholesterol.
Mm-hmm.
The wrong thing's getting blamed. Loving yourself should be at something we value and look on as positive. What was I?
It's, I think it's been, I think where people see that as a bad thing is some people express loving themselves differently than others, and sometimes how they're communicating loving themselves, it comes off as, oh, like this person is so full of themselves. And I just think some people don't know how to articulate out loud that I feel good. I had the luxury, my mom always jokes with me about it, that her, like my uncle gave me and like my brothers like a God complex. My uncle and my mom always lifted me up. Always. They never ever emotionally like pulled me down. They always wanted me to walk with my head high. My uncle, walking around with his shirt off, like really loving, like, wow, like this is what I earned, the way that how strong I feel emotionally, mentally, physically. So I always grew up with that being my identity, which is kind of like physically capable. And then as I got older, I started working on more mental strength, jogging and not quitting while I'm on my jog, pushing a little bit harder. But I think it is so important. I think it's hard to love other people if you don't love yourself.
Possible. Yeah.
I just think, it's not fully you're not fully loving people if you can't love yourself. I don't think it's, I think it's stressful for people. It's unhealthy to do that. And I think, a lot of people have been programmed to extinguish, people feeling like that. I see it all the time.
Yeah.
And I was talking about it on last podcast. Like I'm seeing people really elevate and changing the way that they're eating, exercising. And a lot of people just are programmed to put that fire out because, they feel the heat from it. And I think some people don't know how to deal with that. And I just think, as long as you're not making anyone feel bad, you should be able to say, I feel outstanding. So when I walk by a mirror, I love looking at myself, and there's nothing wrong with that. So
if that gets communicated negatively, then the person needs to dial in their EQ.
Exactly.
And their self-awareness.
You know, I do think that is there. You know, I've noticed myself doing that sometimes around certain people in my family. Maybe it made them like feel bad, right? And I just, you know, had to reflect on it and be like, you know what? I just need to communicate that type of confidence in a different way around a certain audience, you know? Yeah. So I just think that's really what it is. It's just the way people are communicating their confidence. Sometimes it you know, triggers people. So,
yeah. So don't let other people's negative comments deter you. Self-love isn't arrogance. It's necessary.
No.
You know? Thing with like refereeing that I picked up, it's like referees want to be so out of like the way and don't even want to give their voice, and they view talking anything about themselves as arrogant and ego.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, we have to separate this. You should be able to speak about yourself in a kind way and it not offend anyone else, and it be wholesome and good.
Yep.
So love yourself. Eliminating self-talk is huge. Instead of I'll never get it right, I'm still learning. Every attempt is progress. Instead of I'm terrible at this, I need more practice to improve this component. Like, you want to get more specific with your evaluation of yourself and not just an emotional reaction, because that doesn't inform you and give you any kind of next steps on how to be better. It's just you're telling everyone you don't like it, and then that's it.
Yeah, I just think, you know, I was talking about that book that I was reading. It's called Obstacle is the Way. And it's kind of how I think you and me are similar with this view of life, that the glass isn't half empty. It is half full.
Actually, it's overflowing.
Or it's half empty, but I'm going to fill it up more, right? I just think no matter what, you are going to move forward. It might not be right this second. It might be a week from now or a year from now. So when I think like that, I'm like, well, no matter what, I'm going to have to move forward eventually. So rather than wait, why don't I just do it now? So I'm just going to, you know, eat better. I'm going to work out today. I'm going to work out, you know, a little bit longer, right? So I just think people, you know, have been exposed to sitting in that not moving forwards, you know, feeling a little bit.
Sure. So that's number one, loving yourself. Now I want to talk about 3 ways to be more happy. Okay. Number 1, eliminating pet peeves. Number 2, eliminating complaining. Number 3, I know this is a clean show, but it's important I say this. Number 3, stop talking shit about other human beings.
Yes.
So let's click on all 3. Okay. Number 1, eliminating pet peeves. We've all heard of the term pet peeves, right? Somebody asked me that on a podcast. He said, what is your biggest pet peeve? And that's when I realized, wow, pet peeves are completely unproductive. And it's like placing a pre-order for unhappiness, right? So, you know, a pet peeve is essentially a reservation for frustration.
Yeah.
By deciding in advance that something will upset you, you're allowing an external factor to dictate your mood and emotional well-being.
Yeah.
It's a voluntary weakness. So statements like, I hate when people do this, or it drives me crazy when this happens, that reflects a vulnerability in emotional resilience, because you're handing over control to your happiness.
Yeah.
Or, you know, because of an external event or behaviors that are often trivial and out of your control. One thing that refereeing taught me is control what you control. That's a really great line. Most of the things we cannot control. However, 100% of the things we can control how we respond to it.
Yep.
Another reason why pet peeves suck, you become emotionally rigid. So it creates a narrow framework for tolerance and for making it easier to deal with minor annoyances because it disrupts your peace.
Yeah.
And it's a crutch. It allows you to externalize blame for your negative emotions rather than taking responsibility before you react.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're trying to eliminate pet peeves, identify your triggers. Like write down a list of things that you hate that are on your pet peeve list. So then you could start to work at crossing them off your list. Right? And also reframing a situation is huge. Instead of saying it drives me crazy when people chew loudly, you could say, this is a minor inconvenience that does not affect my overall happiness. I can't control what they do, but I can control how I react.
Yeah.
Practicing emotional athleticism, Mark. We want to be athletic with our emotions.
Emotional athleticism. I love that.
Just versatility,
Love
right?
it.
Have all the skill sets.
Love it.
So being emotionally athletic will allow us to treat pet peeves as a mental workout, so we can build more resilience and develop a little bit of flexibility. Like, why am I letting this bother me? Does it really matter? So it's about just shifting your focus. I wanted to hear your thoughts on pet peeves, how you deal with them, and how you
I was dealing with them.
You're gonna deal with them different now after I laid that down.
I was dealing with them last night. I was cleaning dishes, and one of the pet peeves that I have, right?
Pet peeves.
We're gonna work on this.
Yeah, now you are.
Is that when I'm cleaning in the sink, you know, I'm like rinsing everything, like soaping everything. So sometimes as I'm doing that, my wife is helping me by getting the other dirty stuff and bringing, you know, towards closer to the sink. But sometimes rather than where I'm just like, oh, just put it to the side, like leave it on the counter, I'll get it. She takes the dirty stuff and just puts it right in the sink where I have all the soapy, clean, you know, dishes. And yesterday I was like stopping her. I'm like, no, don't put it there. Put it on the counter. And she just put it in my clean, soapy water instead. So I had to redo the whole thing. And, you know, we were laughing about it, like, you know, that it was triggering me. I wasn't mad or anything, but it was getting under my skin a little bit.
Sure.
But we were laughing about it. But it's something that it's like a pet peeve of mine. Like, don't put dirty stuff in this clean, soapy sink that I'm working on right now. I'll handle it. Leave it in the back. Yeah.
I mean, listen, we all have our preferences.
Yeah.
But I like if you start looking at it as a pre-order for unhappiness.
Yeah.
It's like, yo, you're signing up early to be unhappy.
Yeah.
So
I'm
that's a vulnerability.
I'm pretty good with that stuff. I'm very like, as long as it's not, you know, it's not my action, like it won't bother. It's not going to ruin my day. Yeah.
So that brings me to number 2, eliminate complaining. Okay. Complaining is a happiness killer.
It is.
It's unproductive and ineffective.
Yes.
Complaining doesn't solve any problems or create solutions. It's a mental loop that reinforces negativity without moving you forward. It also exposes emotional weakness. Complaining reveals a lack of control over your mindset. It shifts the focus to what's wrong instead of what can be improved. So many people are telling me what's wrong, what they don't like.
Yeah.
Tell me what you like.
Yeah.
Tell me what you're going to change.
You've hit me with this a lot.
I'm going to keep hitting with you.
I want you to. Just keep peppering me.
Full court press.
Keep peppering me.
We're going to iron out all the kinks.
Just jabbing me with positivity.
So it's emotional weakness. It sends a message that external circumstances dictate your happiness rather than your own perspective and actions. It breeds negativity. Complaining amplifies what is wrong, making small issues seem bigger. Over time, it trains your brain to look for problems, which becomes a self-fulfilling cycle of dissatisfaction. It drains your energy, Mark. Complaining drains your energy.
Yeah.
Not only exhausts your mental energy, but impacts those around you, spreading negativity in personal and professional relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And it blocks gratitude.
Yeah.
We spoke about gratitude every episode so far.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the pillars of our show.
Yep.
When you focus on what's wrong, you miss opportunities to appreciate what's right. Gratitude and complaining cannot coexist.
That's right.
That's why I have no complaining bones in my body. I view it as almost a sin.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know there's circumstances where complaining is understandable and empathetic to. Remember, everybody in your life has to be healthy for you to have this perspective of gratitude and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand life presents obstacles that are not easy. So I'm not speaking about that. I'm speaking about the little stuff on the
Yep.
day-to-day that we can control.
Yep.
So the power of eliminating complaining allows you to focus on solutions. It allows you to build emotional resilience. It will enhance your relationships, and it will just protect your mental energy. What do you complain about?
What do I complain about?
Correct answer: nothing.
No, it's hard, dude. You grow up, you get exposed to stuff. A lot of this stuff is taught. You know what I mean? So, when I hear a lot of complaining, and at home for me, I get bothered and annoyed by it, but I also understand and recognize, because I dealt with things like that growing up, that some people are just submerged in that all the time, and it becomes part of their language, and it's not easy to change a habit. I mean, it's the same thing as when we're talking about let's change the way that we're eating. It's a habit, dude, and you know what I mean. And if you're not looking and seeing the angle of the chessboard a certain way, it's not that easy to just like turn the switch off like that. So I notice that stuff at home. My Italian American in-laws, they're intense, the way they communicate. Sometimes it bothers me, but I know it's, it is deep down coming from it's their love language. It's just, and I used to maybe judge stuff like that, but it's their love language. It's how they express themselves. And, I'm trying to give them, I'm trying to help give them the encryption code of how to, unlock that and, change that a little bit. I don't want to change who people are and stuff like that, but just to, to understand that not everyone likes to communicate like that or deals well with communicating like that. So, it's hard. A lot of people, they've been living like this for years and years and years. You know what I mean? So, it's just our job to just create more awareness about it.
Sure.
And I think what makes it hard fixing things like that, I think you're very good at communicating. So you're communicating that very well. Someone else who maybe has that same abrasive love language, when they say it back, there's too much friction going on now. You know what I mean? So I think our job is to lead by example. I notice this, me being a father now, seeing, how I grew up and how I want to raise my daughter, and I look at her and I'm like, it's my job to communicate in the most positive way for her. Maybe she does something wrong or she's not listening, but it's my job to communicate that the right way to her, so
all the time.
Yeah. So, I notice these things.
And complaining is easy, Mark.
Yeah. So easy.
Building the mental wherewithal to be able to navigate negativity with a positive mind is difficult.
Yeah.
That's what we're here to do.
Mm-hmm.
These are the muscles we're here to build.
Yep.
So eliminating complaining, number 2. Number 3, stop. What do you got, Claudio? I want you to unmute.
Complaining. You're fired.
Is that a complaint?
No, I'm just saying I like the you're fired thing that you started last time. So it's a good.
He's saying you're fired. Complaining is fired.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I got it.
By the way, when I was giving my list of shout outs to start the episode, Claudio, you are on that list. So we had a great pre-podcast talk, and I'm glad you're on this journey with us.
I'm dialed in, baby. Let's go.
I think most human beings, like 99% of them, at some point and in some form, in some capacity, talk shit about other human beings.
Yeah.
And I made that change a few years back. I've gone to the extreme. I do everything in my abilities to I don't have to try at this point. It's just not in me. I don't think it's ever good, and I don't think it ever leads to happiness. I like to make decisions that map to my happiness.
Yeah.
I know talking bad about other people is not a practice that's going to equate to happiness.
Yeah.
First of all, in the micro, the act of doing it, I don't know. Sometimes it's a short-term fix. It may feel good. It doesn't feel good. It's a stressful thing.
Yeah.
Talking bad about somebody. So let's get a little deeper into it. It breeds negativity. Okay. It reinforces negative thinking patterns, and it shifts your focus to what's wrong with the world what's wrong with the world or people instead of what's right.
Yeah.
Back to seeing what's good. Perspective. It reflects your own insecurities. Often when we criticize others, it's a projection of something we feel insecure about in ourselves.
Yeah, that's what I think it mostly is. Yeah.
It damages relationships. Gossip, not a great word. Gossip and negativity erode trust, respect, and meaningful connections with others. It's another energy drainer. Complaining, criticizing, it's mentally exhausting, and it leaves little room for positivity or growth. And it definitely blocks empathy. When you're talking negatively about someone, you're not giving yourself the opportunity to understand their perspective or circumstances. That's why it's like, I try not to judge people, man. Everyone is so judgmental of everything everyone is doing, and they would do it totally different, and they want to share their opinion to the world.
Yep.
I try not to have opinions, Mark.
Yeah.
Let's talk about opinions.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot.
Yeah.
I really keep them in. Everybody just wants to share their opinion about things.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are dealing with things internally that maybe they're not loving themselves, and
They're not.
a lot of negative talk. And I think when people do that, it's an easy way at taking attention off of themselves. And it's a brief moment, maybe you stopped me in my tracks doing it sometimes, talking about an athlete that I'm talking like negatively about in a certain way, right? And you're just like, you just like don't want to hear it. You know what I mean? Because it's just like, all right, are you happy now? You got that out of your system?
Are we
what
building or breaking?
Yeah, so rather than talk about the positive part of what I like about a player, right? So you made me pretty aware of that side of the coin. But yeah, I just think I think it gives people the ability to take attention off of themselves for a few minutes. That's what I think it is.
Another example, like even with the way I give my feedback on an artist, like on music. I used to bash music I didn't like.
Yeah.
Now I wouldn't have the audacity to disrespect someone's art.
Yeah.
If I hear a song I don't like it, it's not for me. I'm not really interested in it. It's not my vibe.
The Drake Kendrick Lamar stuff, it showed me something that even I would do, especially with athletes, because I like both of those people and I love both of their music. I was able to very kind of like go back and forth with whose music I liked more. And I noticed when I talked about that whole situation with people who liked one party more than the other, that we get so into tribalism that you have to pick a side and pick a team. And it results in, it's like the conversation about Michael Jordan and LeBron James and Kobe Bryant.
They're both great.
It's like we're sitting here minimizing two other guys because I'm saying that, no, Michael Jordan is the best. So does that mean that LeBron James and Kobe Bryant aren't the best basketball players ever, like for their time? No. So it's like, I think we get so stuck on black and white, picking a team, left and right. And we, lose gaze of like, they're both really good. Right. So, I noticed that, I was doing that, and I'm like, they both achieved really, cool projects of music, and I like both of them. You know what I mean? I'm not going to sit here and be like, he stinks because, this song wasn't as good as that one. Right. So I feel like everyone does that.
But it's even in that word, though. If you think about that word, the best. Yeah. The best is literally separating one from another.
Yeah.
So even utilizing that word versus saying, hey, these are awesome athletes or awesome whatever, it's automatically a transition in like your thought process. And I'm honestly just thinking about this as you're talking about it, because I'm one to be like, oh, trash. Trash.
It's not nice.
And when you think about it, it's like, damn, even the word best is and it's a good word, but it's a good word that if one is best, someone is not.
Yeah.
And automatically putting that one down. So
and you did it in such a nonchalant, routine, everyday type of way.
Right.
And people just don't realize they're using unkind language.
Right.
And
It's
it
very
gets
normal.
filtered into other areas of life. So a couple other examples might resonate with our listeners. When you're talking shit, usually you're judging someone's choices. Can you believe they did it like that? What were they thinking? Why would they wear that?
Yeah.
They're so inappropriate.
Yep.
Instead, you could reframe with a little empathy. I wonder what they're going through that led to that decision.
Yeah.
Criticizing work or effort. So many people criticize other people at their job and their efforts. They're so bad at their job. How do they even keep it? If I were in charge, things would not be such a mess.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, you can reframe with optimism. I wonder if they need support or a different perspective to improve.
Mm-hmm.
Personal attacks. They're just not a good person. They're so fake. It drives me crazy. Instead, focus inward. It's not my place to judge their character. I can only control how I respond to it.
Mm-hmm.
Disagreeing with someone's beliefs. Everybody's disagreeing. Disagreements are okay, but can we do it in a positive team building way?
Yep.
Either you're building or you're breaking. We're building over here. So disagreeing is okay, but it's how you frame it. I can't believe they think like that. It's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, you could shift to curiosity. I wonder why they see it that way. Maybe I can learn something from their perspective. Lifelong learners. We're always going to be lifelong learners. Also, making assumptions. People are assuming. They judge a book by its cover. They're just lazy. They don't care. Instead, maybe give a little grace. I don't know their situation. Maybe they're dealing with something I can't see, which is everyone, by the way. We don't know what's going on behind people's closed doors, but we're so quick to judge them for it.
Yeah.
Without having the info.
I think that is a big component of a lot of abrasion today is I can't believe this person thinks like that. And it's just a bunch of people minimizing other people's value systems, and it's not good. Yeah. It's just my value system is better than yours. I mean, you might as well put a Christian in a room with someone who's Muslim and just let them sit there and yell and scream at each other whose religion is more important than the others. I just think it is such a toxic environment to be part of. It's not good. I see it. I've seen it so much over the past 5 years. Even with family, seeing how, one thought process can immediately separate and create this barrier between family members just by, I can't believe you think this way. It is so bad to not just sit back for 2 minutes and just understand that everyone looks through the lens of life differently than you. And if you cannot understand that, you're gonna be complaining and talking shit your whole life. I mean, that's really what's gonna happen. If everyone doesn't speak the way that you speak, think the way that you speak, work out the way that you work out, eat the way that you eat, it's like, it's just silly. It's just
Talking
a recipe for being miserable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm so happy you said that about the thinking part. I think about all day how I can be better, how I can make my life and my family's life better. So many people spend so much time thinking about what other people think about.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They're thinking about what someone is thinking.
Yeah.
It's so counterproductive.
Yeah.
So just to hammer this home, how to break the habit. Number one is awareness. Catch yourself in the act. Notice when you're about to criticize or gossip. Pause. Take a deep breath. Ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? And is what I'm saying helpful or hurtful? Number two, shift to empathy. Instead of judging or trying to understand the person's situation, instead of judging, try to understand their perspective. Replace, they're so difficult to work with, they may be under stress. How can I make this easier for both of us?
Yep.
Integrity, bigger person stuff. That's what we're on. Focus on positivity. Make it a practice to only say things that uplift or constructively contribute. I like that word, constructive. Mm-hmm. We can give critical feedback. We're going to do it in a kind, positive, uplifting way. That's how we do it. If you can't find something positive to say, don't say it at all. You remember that term?
Yeah.
Let's take it a step further. If you can't find something positive to say, don't think it.
Yeah.
And even further, reframe your thoughts so it doesn't hit your brain as negative.
Yep.
You like that?
Love it.
Love you.
Love you.
That was just natural vibes right there. So we talked about shift into empathy, focus on positivity. Positivity is one of the pillars of this show. Make it a practice to only say things that uplift. We mentioned that. Take it further. Reframe your thoughts with positivity even when they're silent. Gratitude. When you feel the urge to criticize, shift your focus to something or someone you're grateful for. Just be happy to be alive before you go break down someone's bridge. And replace gossip with solutions. If you're discussing someone's actions or decisions, focus on what can be done to improve the situation rather than tearing them down. And I'll close with this. Talking negatively about others may feel like a small indulgence, but it's a poison to your happiness, relationships, and peace of mind. By eliminating the habit of criticizing others, both aloud and in your thoughts, you cultivate a mindset of kindness, empathy, and positivity. Remember, the energy you put into the world is the energy you live with. Choose positivity, not judgment, and watch your happiness grow. Love yourself.
I think perspective is everything. And I don't want to say that everyone just always lacks perspective and that's what the problem is. Sometimes I think perspective can be warped, even though maybe you've seen things, that would teach you a lesson about being grateful, right? I just think sometimes people's perception is warped and it fogs their train of thought and, being patient, not judging people. But I just think perspective is everything. It's kind of like why they say when you have a near-death experience, a lot of people, they compare it to a crazy psychedelic experience. That's kind of what they compare it to because they're similar in a way, that it rewires people when you have that near-death experience because there's a moment that you're going through and you immediately remember what is important, what moves you forward in relationships with people, that it's not worth, soaking in anything bad, because you had this brief feeling of, what if I'm not breathing tomorrow? So I think stuff like that, it needs to happen sometimes, but.
So that was one of my goals for this episode, is to really hammer down these foundations. And as we do future episodes, we're going to revert people back to this episode as kind of our framework of thinking. And it'll allow us to attack the clean eating and the daily commitment to lifelong fitness easier.
Yep.
So thanks for giving me the platform to do that.
No, it's awesome. It's really, I keep a lot of that aspect of my life inside just because from a superficial standpoint, when I'm training people, it's just very thought of physical appearance. But I see totally different people every day for the past 8 years. I mean, people who think this way, people who feel this way. And if I cannot adapt constantly to what this person is going through, or what their emotional intelligence is, their IQ is, whatever, I can't take a step forward at like helping them. So I have to understand that everyone is going through different things. They have different languages of how they express themselves. And I'm just trying to, navigate through all that for them. So, it's important for, me working with you, being around you has helped me with what I do with people, like a lot. I used to, I told you, I used to have more like that bully mentality of like
forceful.
Yeah. You're either going to push on this treadmill, Paul, or you're not. Right. And that is not the way to go. There is such a different way that I can be helping you move forward. So, I try to just harness that and give that to people.
Yeah. It'd be nice to have a remote control and like force people to do the things we want.
Yeah.
It's just not going to work.
Yeah. No.
So there's a big gray area. It's not one or the other sometimes, and everyone's different. So finding that language and communication that works for that individual probably is best.
Yep.
What's on your mind? I know you're about to come drop a lot of knowledge.
What's on
in here.
my mind?
How do we dial into the topic you want to share about today?
No, you were talking a little bit about, and it kind of gets into how things being sourced, with the food that you're eating, ingredient wise, they could be very different. I think it's important to know that. Previously you were asking me about citric acid and stuff like that. So, we can go down that rabbit hole. I don't know if my man Claudio has got some, ammo he wants to let loose, but
Can I share a quick story about citric acid?
sure.
So my wife, I love my wife. She's the best ever. Love you, baby.
Shout out.
Because she might be listening to this one.
Yeah.
She didn't listen to my ref podcast, but I think she'll be dialed into this one. She makes salsa chicken in the crock pot. By the way, crock pot, fantastic cooking technology.
Great.
The idea of taking food out of the fridge and placing it in an object, closing the top, hitting a button, and then going about your day or going to sleep is incredibly efficient.
Yep.
So I love that. She makes salsa chicken. It's 2 ingredients, chicken and salsa,
Yep.
although that has more than ingredients. So, and I've had her salsa chicken for years, 5 years. Love it.
Yeah.
I actually love it. I really do. She said, babe, I'm making a salsa chicken. You going to have it? Here's the ingredients. Here's the salsa. I said, oh, let me check the salsa. Let me see what you got. She's using organic chicken. That's good. That's a check. All right. We're having organic chicken. Reading.
No.
I see organic salsa. I say, all right, so we're on the right page. Organic tomato puree, organic tomatoes, organic green bell peppers, organic onions. So far, we're off to a good start. Great start. Yes, yes, yes. And I see the citric acid. I say, oh, yeah, citric acid in there. I don't know if I'm going to be having it. I said, I'll probably have it.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, I'll just probably have it.
Yeah.
Kind of got out of my self for a second. But I told her I would have it. I miscommunicated that. But anyway, fast forward a day later. I was at dinner and I opened up the salsa chicken in the Tupperware and I put it directly in a strainer and I put it under the sink and I washed out all of the salsa until my chicken was waterlogged and I got most of the red color out.
Was the chicken cooked?
Yeah.
And you washed it?
The chicken was cooked in a Tupperware, needed to be reheated, took a scoop, put it in a strainer because it was mixed with the salsa. So I washed it out. And so all the salsa.
What do you mean by washed?
I poured water on top of the chicken so it would eliminate the residue of salsa.
This is one of the most interesting things I've ever heard in my life.
Well, this
I don't
is a
think anyone
testament
has ever washed food
to be dialed in.
Post-cooked.
This is a testament to how dialed in I am.
Yes.
The one ingredient I had to eliminate. So anyway, I
Unbelievable.
wash it out. The chicken is waterlogged. It's full of water. I still see a couple little peppers in it. I'm not going to get 100% of it out. But I washed a lot of the sauce out. So then what am I going to do to make it edible? I dried it and then I reheated it. So that was a little bit helpful. And I put hot sauce on it. An organic hot sauce, clean ingredients.
Great.
So I added more red color to it. So when my wife did walk by, she didn't notice any discoloration. It maintained its natural red color.
Man, this sauce is good.
So I was able to put hot sauce on it and yeah, it tasted a little watery, but I eliminated most of the citric acid. However, I did consume trivial amounts of citric acid.
Wow.
So tell me why that's bad.
Citric acid?
Yeah.
So it's the way they're getting it. They have to extract sugar to create the citric
Wait a
acid.
minute. You say sugar. Let me stop you right there. Most people think of citric acid and we think it's coming from a lemon or lime.
Yeah.
Do you mean to tell me the citric acid that we're eating is not from fruit?
No, it is not.
Oh.
They can extract it from sugar. It's obviously probably, I would assume, more efficient with how mass-produced corn is, for example.
The corn family.
And
Back to that horrible family.
Yeah, everything. At the end of the day, everything is about how can they, in the most efficient way, keep costs down. So if you're having a whole crop of corn, you can get so many things out of the corn, like getting the corn, extracting the sugar, or getting the corn and creating high fructose corn syrup. Now your corn just turned into another product that, you can sell that as well, right? So they're using the corn to extract the sugar, but how citric acid is made, and they can get that sugar from high fructose corn syrup, is that they need to use a fungus, a mold, which is called, what was it again?
Should we be eating mold?
I mean, listen, you can be devil's advocate and be like, the amount that I'm getting, is it really that bad? I don't know. Maybe like me, like I have an allergy to mold, right? So maybe, I don't know, I'm someone who's sensitive to it. So now it's like this constant, I don't know, exposure. I noticed it in one of those crazy vitamin C, the emergency packets that everyone drinks
not
when
clean?
they're not feeling. Not at all.
You're fired, emergency.
No, not even close. And that like has a whole bunch of citric acid. So it's like you're consuming something that in order for it to be made, that's not coming from lemon, it's coming from a massively like GMO'd food, which is corn.
My question is, sorry to interrupt, how do they even call it citric acid? Isn't that disrespectful to the original form?
How
can they call it the same name? I think molecularly it's like the same.
It's just,
and I don't know the science. But.
It's just well, no, citric acid is, if I'm not mistaken, it's a salt. Let me make sure. I put it in before.
It's just crazy how most people assume it's fruit. So you actually look at the ingredient, you're like, yes.
Well, they see citric and associate it with citrus.
Sure.
And you can get that from lemon and stuff like that, but that's not cost efficient. It's much easier. I have a 100-acre crop of corn. You know how much citric acid we can produce out of this right now versus, using.
It's a profitable flip.
Yeah, and because they're extracting it like that process, then they're fermenting it. They're running through these processes, which creates shelf life for these things. And now you can take this ingredient and throw it into, thousands of products, thousands. So it is extracting the sugar and then fermented using a mold called Aspergillus niger, which produces the citric acid as a byproduct. And like as this says, this is a very cost-effective and scalable method for producing citric acid. Everything is about how can they make more of something for cheaper, and this is kind of the issue.
Mm-hmm. I can't believe they make corn oil from corn.
Yeah.
Crazy that there's an oil, because it's just, you look at it as just a sweet, sugar-based veggie. The fact that
I don't know the process of how they do that, how they turn it into. I'm not sure how that's done.
Sorry to interrupt the podcast. Just wanted to thank you for being here and joining us on this journey. The fact that you're here shows your commitment to your own transformation, and that's something you should celebrate. We're here to help you every step of the way, and we want to hear from you. So if you have questions or thoughts or breakthroughs that you want to share, reach out to us directly at thedialedinpodcast@gmail.com or hit us up on any one of your socials. Now, let's get back to the podcast. So tell me why citric acid is bad. It's bad for gut health, right?
Yeah, and anything that is not, especially from a mold, you have no idea how that's interacting with your body. Like I was saying, like what if you do have some sort of a minor allergy to mold in general, and this has, I don't know, slight remnants of that mold because they use that mold to ferment, the sugar, right? One time it's not a big deal. 2 times not a big deal. It's
700 times over the course of your life.
That's what I'm saying. Like someone said, everything in moderation to me the other day, and I'm like, I totally agree, but I'm like, we're not doing anything. Anything that we're talking about right now, we're not doing any of it in moderation. I can probably go in my house right now and find, I think, 50 things that have citric acid in it. Yeah. So a lot of these things, are not in moderation.
So in citric acid, you'll find it in a lot of beverages, a lot of energy drinks, a lot of juices. It's in flavored water. It's in vitamin water. It's in Propel, Crystal Light, Gatorade, Powerade. It's in all the candies. It's in Doritos. It's in chips. It's in fruit roll-ups, cakes. It's in ketchup. It can be in mustards. It could be in mayos. It could be in salad dressings.
It can be used as a preservative. That's why it helps preserve.
Yogurts, Chobani yogurts.
That's really the main.
Dannon.
That's really the main purpose of it. Is that it has, properties of preserving things.
Oh, and it's in laundry detergents and dish soaps too.
Yeah.
By the way, I did a science project with my daughter yesterday. We have this box of science, projects, but it comes with products inside of it. One of the products is citric acid in powder form.
Yeah, I was noticing like, a while back. This is probably during the pandemic, just everything that was going on. So I went down a deep rabbit hole on the immune system. Growing up, what do you normally think what vitamin do you normally think of when you're like, oh, I don't want to get sick?
Vitamin C.
Yeah. So, I went down the deep rabbit hole of, I gotta get my vitamin C in. And then, as I really started paying attention to it more, and, everything I learned from school, vitamin C is more for like when you are sick, not preventing it. It's more of making sure you have enough soldiers to fight for you and your immune system. It's like your army. Sure. That's what vitamin C is. So, during that time, I had COVID. I'm sitting there. I have the 40 pack of emergency in my apartment, and I'm drinking these things like they're going out of style.
You weren't woke back then?
No, I was. It just the more active that you are, meaning like whatever you're ingesting is in your body, and then you're severely sweating a lot of this whatever's stored in your body out, and your body fat percentage is not high, a lot of these bad things are going to store like in your fat cells. So as long as you're constantly like circulating that stuff, like drinking a lot of water, holding all the stuff in and then sweating it out, doing sauna, right, you're going to filter a lot of that out. So I didn't let things like that really get me worked up so much to that point where it's not the end of the world, right? But as we got deeper and deeper and deeper into the pandemic, and I kept digging into how do you keep your immune system optimized, meaning running how it should be running all of the time, because I got worried during the pandemic. I don't want to get COVID. I don't want long COVID. I don't want to be that sick. What if I can, as best as I can, prevent myself getting sick? Or if I do get sick, I only want it to be 2 days of being sick rather than 14 days of being sick, because that virus is going to like do its thing. But I want to make it as hard as possible for that virus or whatever it is that I'm getting, a cold, flu, or whatever. I want to make it as hard as possible for that to beat me. So I'm going to make sure like my army is ready, it's strong, it has its offense, has its defense. So I got obsessed with that. And as I got more into reading that, I just realized how much the gut is all related to this. So I just got deeper and deeper and deeper into, I want everything in my body as clean as possible, to take into account that the holidays are coming. I'm going to, eat something that I normally would not eat, that is a non-negotiable during the week when I'm in the zone. Mm-hmm.
So we're eliminating citric acid from the show.
Yeah.
I got a side question.
Please.
Hit me.
What is the best way to stay healthy or sick free, or get your soldiers up to be strong and ready for this season? This is the season of colds and flus. Yes, giving, exactly.
Yep.
How do you, kind of hearing what you just said about what you were trying to do.
Yep.
What would Mark do today?
So it's a synergy of things. It's not just like when I say gut health, I'm saying that because if your gut is irritated constantly, your body's trying to fix that irritation. So while it's trying to fix that irritation, and then let's say you're exposed to a cold, and now it's like in your system, your body's trying to identify that, like mark it, meaning like you're not supposed to be here. That's when you're sick, that's what you're feeling. You're feeling your body fight for you. You're feeling the symptom of that. It's what it's normally functioning everyday things. It's now taking some of that and following that cold, that virus in your system, and it's like trying to lock onto it and wrap around it and beat the shit out of it. Like that's really what's happening. So when your gut is irritated, Now let's just say 20% of your energy is being spent trying to, make sure your gut is not irritated. And now there's this crazy imbalance of bad bacteria with good bacteria. So now, while your body's trying to fight, it's also doing that. So when it comes to the gut, it's you're trying to keep it away from bad bacteria, and you're trying to constantly get good bacteria in there. So that way it's one less thing that you have to worry about. The next thing is it could be stress. So if you're sleeping bad and you get sick, you're going to feel a pretty rough, sickness. All right. So it's all of these different things. Like, are you sleeping well? Are you stressed from work? Are you getting a lot of emotional stress that maybe you think that you're getting a raise in the next month and you don't know if you're actually going to get it, right? So it's all the combination of these things, and we're not doing moderation. A lot of people are not sleeping well. A lot of people are not, eating well. Are you stressing your gut out, even if you eat healthy, but you're eating too much for how much your stomach can process? You can create an imbalance of gut bacteria in your gut. That's usually when, even if you're eating healthy and you're eating just so much in one sitting, you'll know if you have like gas that smells. That's because you didn't process everything in your stomach efficiently, and some of it is still sitting in there, and bacterial overgrowth is now happening because it's not, going to the next phase, right? So it's a combination of these things that I try to pay attention to. So then when it comes to the nutrition standpoint, all right, what can I give my body to stop me from getting sick? The main one is zinc. Zinc is numero uno in, is your immune system going to be able to identify when something foreign enters its system. If your zinc is not being met,
That's the security guard?
it's the security guard. If your zinc is being hit, it's a lot harder for you to get sick. Really, when you're getting sick, it's that are your doors open? If your doors are open, they're going to get in, and then once they do get in to your house, do you have soldiers in there to push it back out of your house, right? Or identify it like, oh, someone's in our house, right? So zinc is going to keep that door boarded up really, really, really well. It's going to be like a steel door. It's a safe room door. You need the code and you're not getting in here. So if that's met, it's a lot harder for you to get sick. And then naturally, if people are paying attention to their zinc content, their intake, they're probably paying attention to other things. And that's usually the correlation of people getting sick less, or if they do get sick, they're sick. The severity of their sickness is much, much lower, and the length of their sickness is much less. So it's sleep. Are you irritating your gut? So clean food, making sure you're not overeating at the wrong time of the day. You eating after 8 p.m., 8:30 p.m., especially the wrong type of food, can amp that stress level up where your body has a whole bunch of food in its stomach. Your blood sugar is going crazy, which is not going to allow you to get into deep sleep very well. So now, even though you were in bed for 8 hours, you only slept good for like 4 hours. You didn't recover very well. Your body, and you worked all day and were at the computer all day, staring at the screen. You need your mind to rest. So if you're not sleeping well, boom, you woke up, your body's playing catch up now for the rest of the day. So on top of you playing catch up, you're eating dirty stuff, right? And then it's another long day of work, and you're not really eating anything with zinc content. So that's where animal-based products come into play, because nothing per serving gives you the same amount of zinc as animal-based products. And I never really looked into that and knew that. I always thought, oh, I don't want to get sick, I'm going to eat all my vegetables. You hardly get any zinc out of vegetables. I mean, you would need about 20 servings of spinach to get the same amount of zinc that is in 6 ounces of steak. So in one sitting of you eating 6 ounces of filet mignon is 20 servings of you eating the same exact vegetable. that entire day. And that's even if 20 servings is absurd. If you saw 20 servings of spinach, you'd be like, that's not happening. I'm not eating that. So I think if we pay attention to food that's clean, that's giving us those nutrients that are going to make sure that my immune system is as optimal as possible, like where it needs to be, it's a lot harder to get sick during, the cold part of the year when there's less, vitamin D production because there's less sunlight.
And I love how Claudio just interrupted. We give you full green light to interrupt the podcast at any point.
Do it again.
And,
Full green light.
keep a list of notes and questions that you have through each episode
Awesome.
because I love the spontaneousness of you just hopping in.
Awesome. By the way, so I heard that oysters have the best
they do.
zinc, when it comes to like
They do. So
can you verify? Are they hired or fired?
Yeah, no, they do. That's like my professor was always very, he would always stress like, don't call anything a superfood. There's no such thing. It's kind of like we were just talking about, like something being the best, that like, oh, that's the superfood. So all the other stuff are not, they don't have
Negative talk. Got it.
Nutrients like that.
When I used to Google the word superfood and get a list, never any meat on the list.
Yeah. Meat is so insanely nutrient dense. It's, we talked about this, like that cow can eat so much. So if that cow is eating very good grass, meaning that farm is taking care of their soil and making sure that their soil is nutrient dense, right? Not turning it over watered down, crappy soil with nothing really in it. That cow is eating so much grass that it's storing every vitamin that it's getting out of that grass. So you're asking them for you to eat all of that stuff. So that way, when you eat it, you're getting this little perfect potent dose of every vitamin they just ingested. But oysters are per serving probably the highest. It's just that, are you going to sit down and eat 10 ounces of oysters? Probably not. That's why I don't.
I love
say it
oysters,
like that.
so I don't know.
No, yeah. So, but like if you look at like how much is 10 ounces of oysters, it's basically like take each thing out of an oyster. So it's like, let's look. Like how many, 3 oysters, how many ounces of that is?
As you're looking for this information, I have a little side question, a little part.
Give me a side quest.
You're on fire.
We got-
Since we gave him the green light, he's exploding.
I played a lot of role-playing video games growing up. I'm all good. I love side quests.
You played a lot of role player in
Side
your athletic
quests.
career
That's
too.
funny.
You're a big time role player.
Yes.
Something I was incapable of being.
Cuts of meat. So you just talked about how meat has, the largest or the best way to get your nutrients in and all that good stuff, right? Is there differences in the cut of meat to
No,
the value of what you're actually consuming? So obviously a fillet versus like, I don't know, like what's a more fattier piece of
I haven't, in terms of like the nutrient itself, I haven't noticed too much of a difference with like zinc intake.
well, just in general, the nutrients itself. Because a filet mignon is probably the most expensive cut,
Yeah.
right? And you're gonna get like something like very small, comparable to like another piece of a cut that's maybe a little bit more fatty. It comes from a different part of the animal.
Yeah.
Is there a difference, or is there any correlation, or does it matter whether you're spending $50 on a little fillet, or $20 on like, I don't know, some beef chuck or whatever?
No, you're paying for what people want more, which is I want the tastiest or the most tender piece of the meat, because obviously that's going to taste better than it's like eat a filet mignon and then eat a strip steak. Like a strip steak is tasty, but it is nowhere near as tender as filet mignon. So it's really, you're paying for how tender that cut is. And I'm sure it also probably has something to do maybe with like the region of the cow.
Well, they're also like less fatty. The fillets are pretty lean stuff. And I'll tell you this from personal, I don't know if you guys can kind of maybe, if this is similar to you, but if I eat, filet, my body digests it one way.
Yeah.
And to me, it's the better way.
Yeah.
I'll eat other cuts of meat that have more fat in them. And they are more tasty a lot of times because the fat gives it that pretty delicious taste, right?
Yeah, I love her.
But then you know, then when it comes time to digest those guys, like I know it tears my stomach up a little bit, you know, and it'll linger a lot longer, the digestion process, versus having a nice, you know, filet mignon.
So the reason why that is, so like if you're consuming carbs like sugar, fruits, it is good to have those fruits with some sort of like a healthy fat source, because it's going to slow down how fast the sugar is like going into your bloodstream. So what you're seeing is with the fattier pieces, you know, I do this because I get a lot of ribeye, then I get strip steak. Rarely I get filet mignon because it's, you know, over time, it's very expensive. So what you're seeing is you're eating a very high amino acid protein, but when you consume it with a lot of fat, there's twice the amount of caloric energy per gram of fat than there is with protein and carbs. So it has to work hard to break down the 9 calories per gram versus protein and carbs, which is 4 calories per gram. So when you combine those two, like a ribeye, and you're eating, and no one eats the right amount of, you know, meat usually. They're eating too much. So it's really hard to process in your stomach. But anything that you eat with a whole bunch of fat is going to make it take forever in your stomach to break down. That's really where you're going to see that problem of indigestion with meats like that. That's why you're not going to feel that type of indigestion the same way with chicken, because it's naturally leaner. You're not going to you know, feel that with elk as much, because the ratio of, you know, protein to fat is insane in elk. It's very, 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 very lean. So that's really where that's coming from. Anything that you eat with a lot of fat, it's going to slow down your digestion drastically. So that could be a good thing for people when it comes to carbohydrates, because it'll help slow down how fast your blood sugar is going to lift up. But it also could be a bad thing like that. It's like you have food sitting in your stomach way too long, and now it's still sitting in there, and then 3 hours went by, and now you're eating something else and putting something on top of it. So that's one of the first things that I try to do with people, is just like chill out the stress on the stomach, because that's what happens when you're eating. And everyone's doing that, dude. Everyone's eating. You go to a restaurant. Yeah, can we get a 32 ounce of tomahawk ribeye? Like 32 ounces, like that's a lot of protein for your stomach. You know, I don't think someone's eating 32 ounces, probably eating like 16. You just ate a pound of meat. I mean, you probably just ate like 70 grams, 80 grams of protein with like 50, 60 grams of fat.
So what is the right amount?
For what? Protein?
Of protein or steak? Or
I would say...
Is it relative to like your weight and
it's
your
relative
size?
to your skeletal muscle mass. Like, so like I have a formula that like I type in, and it tells me, you know, like if I know your body fat, you know, how much muscle mass you have. And that's going to give me an idea because your muscle's thermogenic. Your muscle's burning calories. Fat isn't. So that's really the number you want to look for. You don't want to look at like your weight. You want to look at your muscle mass. And then usually the number for like men is you should be at like 5 to 6 ounces of protein in each sitting. The more intense the protein is, so like red meat, you can have a little bit less because it's giving you more in that small dose. Chicken, you can have more of. Fish, you can have more of. Eggs, you can have more of. The red meat is the intense one, so you need less of it. And no one eats less of it. They're eating so much red meat at once. That's kind of where a lot of the negative things have come from red meat. It's like when studies are being done on this stuff, it's serving size of that protein, the source of the protein that they're using in the research study. Like I doubt in the research study they're getting, shout out to Miller's Biofarm. I'm going to be shouting them out so much.
Did we get a sponsorship?
Yeah, no, we're gonna shout them out. I order from them every week. I doubt research studies are using regenerative farming, you know, food like that in that research study. Because so when you're seeing these results, you're seeing that, oh yeah, well, I saw that you're talking about inflammation maybe in the body. How much protein were they eating at once, and what was the protein, and how fatty was it too, right? So there's all these little things that you kind of got to decipher to really know what you're looking at when it comes to what's right and what's wrong for your body. But yeah, like women, because they have less muscle mass, especially women, you don't want to stress their hormones out. That's going to make it hard for them. Like if they're trying to get healthier, lean up. So you want to keep them, like a woman should be having like 3-4 ounces of red meat. And like, that's the right serving. And then when it comes to fat, you want to stay in like that 10 to 14 grams per serving. If you're not doing that and you're eating over that, and it is so easy to eat way more than 15 grams of fat in a sitting, that's where you're going to see leptin resistance start happening. And that tells you that you're full. So that's when you sit down and eat 3 slices of pizza and you're like, I can eat another 3 slices of pizza. That's leptin resistance. That's you're not feeling that hormone work for you. So your body's not feeling full. And you just keep eating and eating and eating. Yeah.
You want to see my product of the week?
Yes.
Because last week I brought some items and I thought it was cool, like a show and tell. So feel free to bring some products.
I ran out of my. I wanted to shout out to Miller's Biofarm. I wanted to show my snack that I eat, and I get the beef sticks from them, and they're just. And I try other ones, and these ones are just outstanding.
I have one item in this bag.
Ooh, what do we got? What do we got? What do we got?
Suspenseful.
Oh,
Good culture cottage cheese.
There you go.
By the way, we are good for the culture of clean eating
We are good
and
for the
positivity.
culture.
We're good for the culture. So it's a double meaning. But I want to talk about cottage cheese today. Now, growing up, I thought cottage cheese was the worst cheese in the cheese family. I know I spoke about me liking every food, basically every food. I forgot to mention cottage cheese was not a food I liked. The texture was horrible. Or not to my liking. Let me reframe. It was very bitty, loose, just not delicious. So I did not eat much cottage cheese growing up. I tried it back. I remember in 2010, I circled back to it, tried getting it with pineapple, but it was like, whatever. Then I started seeing cottage cheese like go viral on TikTok, like out of nowhere. I'm like, oh, cottage cheese is getting a lot of love and people are making pretty interesting, delicious looking dishes with cottage cheese. So it was like resurfaced back on the scene. But this brand, Good Culture, part of one of their mission statements, and I don't want to falsely read, but it was like, this is not your cottage cheese from your childhood, basically. This is so much more delicious than any cottage cheese I've ever had. So I highly recommend this. But the cool thing about cottage cheese is it's like, it could be added or mixed into so many other recipes. So I want to list how I'm using cottage cheese, and I think you guys will find some of these intriguing and maybe do it yourself. We all know about cottage cheese with fruit. I like that. You add a little bit of honey on top of that, especially with the Good Culture. Now, a lot of the brands of cottage cheese are not clean. So this is organic. I believe it's grass-fed. Nothing dirty in here. So we approve of this. Cottage cheese, I put it in my eggs. So with my 6 pasture-raised eggs I eat every day, I put a big heaping tablespoon of it. Blends right in. Previously, I used to put milk or maybe yogurt just to add a little creaminess to the eggs, but now cottage cheese every single time. Another way I use it, you can make cottage cheese everything bagel crisps. All you do is take cottage cheese, put it a little dollop on a parchment paper, add everything bagel seasoning on top, bake it, and then boom, cottage cheese crisps. Everything bagel crisp, delicious. Another thing you could do is have ground meat and you could add cottage cheese on top. That's a really good combination. If you want to really go to Flavor Town, you could put some hot sauce on that, maybe an avocado. Now we're fully in Flavor Town here. I'm a big pizza fan. I love pizza.
Me too.
But I'm looking for modified ways to still enjoy pizza. Cottage cheese allows that. Cottage cheese can be made into bread. Cottage cheese and eggs, 2-ingredient bread. You put a little seasoning on it. You blend it up. You put it on a tray, and you bake it for 20 minutes. And it's a flatbread. So then you could top it with pizza. So it becomes a pizza crust. You can also not top it with pizza and use it as a wrap and make sandwiches out of cottage cheese. So I think that's super awesome. Another one, you can add it to avocados. You do cottage cheese, avocados. Cottage cheese dips. Now, we're not going to be dipping chips in there unless they are without seed oils and a healthier chip, but you can make really good dips with cottage cheese. Cottage cheese lasagna. So you do zucchini instead of the pasta, and instead of the ricotta, you put cottage cheese on top.
Yeah, I use a lot of yogurt.
And then also cottage cheese chocolate cake. You can make a chocolate cake out of it.
Yep.
You blend it with eggs. In the blender, you put cacao powder, which is a clean ingredient. You add a little stevia in there to make it sweet, and then you microwave it, and it becomes like a chocolate bread. And then you put yogurt on top of whatever you want. But what do you think of some of these cottage cheese recipes? Would you enjoy some of them?
I'm always trying to, I make tacos, or, normally back in the day, it's, I throw sour cream on there, which, would be fine if I really knew like it was definitely clean. Basically, the fattier something is, the cleaner you want to make sure that it's being sourced, because a lot of the bad stuff gets stored in the fat. So whenever I'm eating something and I'm adding things to it, I'm just trying to figure out how can I add more protein content to it. So, whether it's cottage cheese, like my wife makes my daughter pancakes in the morning, and it is nothing like the pancakes, that we're normally used to, but it's literally egg, cottage cheese, maple syrup, cinnamon. And I think she also mushes a little bit of banana in it, and she literally makes it, and it comes out exactly like a pancake. And it tastes outstanding. It's like one of the best pancakes I've ever eaten.
Oh, pancakes. Yep. You could do cottage cheese pancakes.
Yeah, they're insane. My daughter loves them. So yeah, I mean, you're always trying to, how can I get a protein in that absorbs very well? Meaning like how bioavailable is the protein? And all those products, milk and whey and all that stuff, like it absorbs insanely well. So that every gram that you're eating out of that thing, your body's really absorbing it, and that's great for you. And it's clean. So
it's clean. It's high protein. It's got no gums, no carrageenan, no chemical preservatives, no added hormones, no artificial anything. So we approve.
I'm trying to find a good bioavailability protein. Infographic.
I want to make some infographics with Dialed In too, because we're accumulating a lot of content on each episode that can be then converted to graphic form. I'm going to put you on that task, Mark. You ready?
I got to fact check this chart I'm looking at. I will, but from my experience, it's pretty relatively like accurate. Sometimes you get little differences, but in terms of the bioavailability, like how well it absorbs when you ingest it, it's basically whey protein and whey concentrate. It's kind of like the supplement that you take, the protein powder. It does a really good job at absorbing very, very well. Then number 3 next to it is egg. So egg, cow's milk, egg white, outstanding. Like when you're eating 10 grams of it, you're getting every gram out of it basically. And then as you start getting lower, it starts getting watered down a little bit, which is into like fish, then beef, then chicken, then casein, rice, soy. I got to fact check this one, because soy, I think it should be a little bit higher. It's just the problem with soy is where are you getting it from? Because it's pretty like mass produced. It's pretty bad. But that's usually what I did. Like when I was in college, I would see, out of all the protein that I can eat, I want to make sure that if I'm eating 100 grams of protein, I want to make sure my body's absorbing 99 grams of it. So that's what I started to focus on. But you got to be careful. Some of these, maybe cottage cheese doesn't work for someone. They have some sort of like, intolerance to whey or casein, which happens with a lot of people. And some of these products, shout out to Milo's Biofarm for educating people. That's
a triple shout out.
That's a triple shout out. They put up a post the other day, which is awesome, and it was showing the histamine content in products such as yogurt, kefir, and showing the difference even like from kefir to yogurt to milk. I
just bought my first kefir. Oh, it's like a mix between yogurt, in between yogurt and milk.
Yeah, it's very, very good. It's very fermented. That's wake up in the morning, wake up, don't get up out of bed and just drink right away, but like get up, get yourself going 15, 20, 30 minutes. A great thing to have in the morning, just immediately ingest kefir. It's just you're immediately getting very, very good healthy bacteria in your gut to start the morning, and you're getting protein in, high absorption. It's awesome. I was like telling your brother for a while, I'm like, wake up, get some water, drink kefir, cup of kefir. If you want to save it, just give it a few slugs and that's it, and put it away.
Not to be the ignorant one here.
Mm-hmm.
What is kefir? And maybe for other listeners that have never heard this word before.
It's just like a more like watery version of yogurt. If I'm not mistaken, it's you have milk, and then the very opposite of the milk is like yogurt and like regatta. The kefir is the in between, where if I'm not mistaken, it's kind of like transitioning over into yogurt, so that's why it's a little bit more watery.
So this is a drinkable thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like a
thick shake.
It's like a watery.
Guys, it's a
yogurt.
fermented drink traditionally made from milk through non-dairy alternatives are available. It's created by fermenting milk with kefir grains, which are a combination of bacteria and yeast in a matrix of proteins, lipids, and sugars.
Yeah.
Speaking of milk, what is the difference between pasteurized and non-pasteurized milk as it pertains to like nutrients and like how it goes into your body?
So, like anything, when you're getting it like in its natural form, then it starts to get processed. It starts going through processes, and during that time it can start to lose traits about it. So pasteurization, they're heating milk up to take any bad bacteria that can be building up in that product, because you're talking about, you go in any grocery store, you can just go in and get milk, right? So you're talking about a very mass-produced thing that, I don't know, was being sourced in Texas and has to make its way to be sold in New York, right?
So it's almost like a way to preserve it in a way.
Yes. So
okay. Hope you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah. I understand that side of the coin. We're trying to feed a lot of people. We have the luxury of there's 5 grocery stores around us right now. And if you have money, you can get whatever you need. So they're trying to give that, to people. When you do pasteurize stuff with anything, like anything high heat, it does, pull things away from it. Mm-hmm. So that's really kind of the argument of, other alternatives of things that aren't pasteurized. And I'm sure you're going to ask, and I'll get into why.
What do you think I'm going to ask?
I don't know.
All right. So this is where I was going. So, the pasteurized side of milk is kind of what we traditionally understand is, the more commonly available. Boom, it's there. Mm-hmm. Then the flip side of that is non-pasteurized, or is that considered raw milk?
Yeah.
Right. And this is where the milk is kind of like more fresh and kind of coming closer from the cow to you.
Yeah.
So the question that I have is, do you worry, or at what point do you worry or not worry about like other bad bacteria coming to you? Like, and the reason this came up is because I saw it came out in the news not too long ago, a couple days ago. Yeah. This aviary flu.
Yeah.
And it's just bacteria that's in chickens and in these kind of like cows and whatever, right? I don't know. Talk to me about this, because this is what popped into my head, and I'm like, oh, so is it worth drinking raw milk if it's gonna give me bird flu?
So I look at this both ways. I have to, because I have to, I don't want to be biased in what I'm doing, because that's something that I do. I consume raw products. So this all started way, way, way back. And this is important to understand this, because it is important. And there's something, to be said about what you're saying. Is way back when we didn't have grocery stores in every corner 150, 200 years ago. So how you made sure that, Paul wanted to make sure that his kids were always going to have food just in case that, you know, they couldn't, I don't know, slaughter a cow this, you know, in the next 2 months, right? So they're not really going to have much meat yet, right? They have to wait. So when you had cows on your farm, you knew we're not going to starve because we can get so many dairy products out of this one cow for our entire family. So, you know, it was to make sure you're not going to starve. So you had milk, you know, you can make cheese, right? So then, you know, we start evolving as a society, and then that's when the industrial age started. So a lot of these farms that have beautiful green big pastures, more space between one another, everyone to make more money and have more opportunity started moving closer and closer and closer and closer to the industrial areas. Naturally, you're around an industrial area that we were not practicing the same, you know, system that we have in place now to, you know, address pollution, right? Sanitary conditions. So a lot of these people were moving closer to industrial areas. So now their cows went from being on 40 acres, 30 acres, 20 acres to, you know, 10 acres. Everything's starting to get tighter and tighter and tighter, right? Now the cows are all really on top of each other. On top of that, you know, we weren't paying attention to sanitary conditions the same way. We didn't have the time and the luxury to think about those things in that way. So you had everyone move closer to more unsanitary conditions, and the cows are living in that environment. They're sleeping, rolling in each other's poop, you know, very, very close to one another, right? So that's where pasteurization came into play, because a lot of people were getting sick, because you can get sick with anything that is being made in sanitary conditions. Now, my argument for that, if you're worried about E. coli and all of these things, if you go to the grocery store and don't get really good sourced meat and clean meat or any products, produce, and you wanted to see the bacteria content that is probably in the pork chop that you're getting from, I'm not going to say the specific grocery stores, and you knew how much E. coli was lingering in that stuff, you wouldn't worry about that stuff, like raw products, in the same way. Now me, I'm educated. This is what I understand. Some people can be uneducated in this topic and just walk into a farm that they have no idea what they're doing. And maybe the person is getting that milk, and that process of how they're getting that milk is not being done the right way. And I don't know, they touched a whole bunch of eggs earlier, right? You know, maybe this person touched the eggs and there's salmonella on the egg. And before they did that, they didn't wash their hands, and they're grabbing, you know, the raw milk they just grabbed, and now they're jarring it up, right? So the place I go to, they're doing everything the right way. They're not pasteurizing. They're doing almost like right under it. So where they're not blasting it, but it's enough to make sure that they're getting, you know, anything that could be in there. And they also test it and upload the bacterial content in every batch of what you're getting. So, you know, so to your point, you could go about it in the uneducated way and just like, oh yeah, I'm going to drive up 4 hours up north, walk into a farm and just grab milk, you know, out of the cow, which probably is your best bet, because there's no in between time, that milk going in that mug and then you walking around and bacteria getting it in it and it's sitting. So you just have to be smart about what you're doing and where you're sourcing your stuff, and it's not a problem. But that's my thing, dude. Like, if you're worried about that stuff, we need to keep that same energy and tone with everything that we eat, and we don't, because they don't like how good raw milk is, because their milk is not as nutritious as that. That's the problem.
Keep that same energy, my boy.
Yeah. So I get that side, and, you know, I make sure I'm getting it from a good place. And I know there's differences. Like, I know, because I've tried several ones, there's ones that'll go bad in 3 days. Like, you got to drink it in 3 days. Then the one that like I have now, it can stay in my fridge for about a week and a half, and it's good, and it's fine. Yeah. But my thing is, like, there's so many other things that everyone should be worried about that they're constantly eating every single day. I mean, even fish. Like, you don't want to know the bacteria that's in most fish. If you knew and put it under a microscope, you wouldn't even be talking about raw milk. It's crazy. So, I understand that stuff, and I think we have to pay attention to it to make sure no one's doing anything that can, like, put them in harm's way. But I love it. I drink it every day. I'm fine. I feel
good.
Outstanding.
He's good, guys.
Yeah,
looks great,
dude. It's just with anything. You know what I mean? It's like you make. What if you're making fish, right? And you get it, I don't know, from a bad place. What if you get fish and you're driving around in your car for 3 hours in the back of your truck, and it's starting to really, like, cool down and it's not cold anymore, right? This is with anything. You're not smart about what you're doing with your food and knowing where it's coming from and how you're preparing it, and you're leaving it out on your kitchen counter, like, while you're cooking a little too long. Like, bacteria is building up all the time. It's with anything. So, I get my stuff from a really good place that knows what they're doing. And, I just think as long as you're paying attention to that and not being silly about where you're getting your stuff, it's more than fine. But that's usually the argument when it comes to pasteurized versus, unpasteurized.
So I just want to finish this off because I've been interrupting a lot. And
I'm about to be the sound engineer. You're about to take this spot.
I apologize. But this is super important, right? Because, like, you guys have your conversation, your back and forth, and you can tell that you guys have been talking about this, so that I understand the dialed in method.
Mm-hmm.
But think about, people new to the podcast, people new to even the knowledge, the information. I'm kind of experiencing it for the very first time, 4 episodes in with you guys now, and there's a lot of questions that are kind of coming up.
Yeah.
So it's really good and important for you guys not only to explain it, but also kind of to remember, like, what it was like before you knew this.
Yeah.
And as you're starting to get to know this, because now, like, you've piqued my interest. Now I want to get dialed in. So now I'm thinking and I'm looking at the labels and I'm trying to, with my very limited knowledge, understand. And that's why I have so many questions that I don't know if you guys want me to interrupt so much, but because, there'll be a lot of listeners, I'm sure, that are gonna not know, and they're gonna, and that's a great thing, because the more you tune in, the more you're gonna find out. But this is part of the process, right? To understand and learn. And what better way than having you guys kind of help us through that process?
It's people should be curious. I think it helps, and I think a lot of people are programmed to be curious in a certain way, and it gets back to, like, the negativity type of it. I notice it a lot, like the way people are just asking me things about certain food that maybe I'm like, this is really good, and this is really good, and they're like, oh, well, what about this bad thing of it, or right? And it's just a lack of education and what they're being told.
There's a lot of misinformation.
Yeah, they're being told in a certain way, that is not allowing them to keep staying curious and, like, dig further in. Oh, well, what if this is bad only in this scenario, but not if it's sourced to, like, X, Y, and Z. And I think this is part of the problem, like, filtering through that stuff. So I love when people are curious. Just some people, I think get a little, they're just programmed to almost, like, ask the wrong questions about this stuff. So that's what I try to help with. I try to decipher through that stuff. And it's also good for me to hear those questions, because it gets me to understand that not everyone, I'm telling this to Paul all the time, they're not at the same part of their journey right now than, like, you and me. So, we got to make sure that process is as welcoming as, possible for them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Absolutely. I lost 25 pounds since August. I used to always be hot. I'm always cold now, so I pulled this heater closer to my body. I hope you don't mind.
You shedded some of the
is that normal?
layers off.
My body is literally colder than it was prior to the transformation.
Yeah, you got
Never
less.
been this cold in my life.
I mean, it could be the weight you're carrying less weight. It also can be correlated to how many times a day would you say that you eat food?
How many meals a day?
How many? I don't
How
want
many
to say
bites
meals
per day?
I don't want to say meals. I want to say how many times a day do you consume? Sit down, stand, walk, whatever, and consume
two times,
food.
dinner and then my late night yogurt snack.
Yeah. So food is a unit of energy. It's heat. It's calories. That's literally what the measurement is. It's like literally heat. It's like when you eat food, it's like taking sticks and throwing it into your furnace, right? So every time you eat food, it goes into the furnace and it heats the furnace up, right? If you take a whole bunch of wood, a lot, and throw it in the furnace, it's going to get really, really hot, but it's going to do that quick. So it's going to get so hot that it's going to fizzle all the energy like right out, right? Rather than I just keep, boom, throw one log in there, throw another log in there, meaning like eat 4 ounces of steak, eat 3 ounces of chicken 2 hours later, 4 hours later, eat some berries and yogurt with honey, right? So sometimes it could be that, like when people who are bobsledding in Antarctica, right? How they stay warm, obviously with the layers that they're wearing.
Shout out to the Jamaican bobsled team. I just wanted to shout them out, by the way, for the 99 Olympics. Or 99.
You know, how people need to stay warm in very, very cold weather is making sure they're consuming insanely high calorically dense food because it keeps their body warm. You don't eat and you're getting cold, you're really going to start like getting very cold and you're going to, you know, start hitting hypothermia. So to keep the body warm, it is ingesting, you know, calories. So that could be some of what you're feeling a little bit, like the change in your caloric intake and maybe the window of time that you're eating, rather than you eat from like, you know, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Maybe now it's only like from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m., right? So now it's like a smaller window where your body's heating up. So it could be from that. On top of that, you know, you lost a lot of body fat.
So this is an interesting episode because we've been dialed in for 4 episodes, building out this vehicle that we're going to put on the road. But so this is the last episode before we have a community, right? Because we haven't released it yet.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the future right now, and the people who are listening are in the past.
Yeah.
So it'll be nice to launch and have a community that we can interact with, and also when we're recording, know that they're kind of with us. So last episode before the launch, wanted to wish you a happy 2025 because it's our last episode of the year, and we're gonna launch to start the new year. So that'll be exciting. Any New Year's wishes that you want to leave our audience with, or final notes before we tie it all in and send them packing?
I'm so excited that you and me are doing this. I think it has helped me feel more really energetic again at giving this type of information to people, even if they're not people that I work with. You know, just feeling really motivated to like talk about this stuff much more and create content out of it and get it out there for people. You know, I want, as another year comes by, you know, here we are, January 1st again, I want people to have the best path at success, like towards making their health better, getting more optimal. Maybe they're already really, really healthy, but getting, you know, even to a better place. But also taking that stuff and what we talked about today, like the mental aspect, and just talking about all this stuff. You know, I want us to create this community. I think you and me have it with each other. We have it with some, you know, when we're in the gym and we see other clients, and we feel it when people are radiating off of each other. So I think it's, you know, that's my one wish. I want this community to grow with you and me.
It's going to be exciting. I can't wait.
Yeah. I'm pumped.
You're dialed in.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So let's finish and wrap up today. I want you to take a moment and reflect on this. You're your greatest champion. You're your most loyal supporter. You're the author of your own story. No one's opinion of you should ever carry more weight than your own. Loving yourself isn't selfish. It's essential. It's the foundation of every step forward, every goal achieved, and every ounce of happiness you can create. When you love yourself, you speak kindly to yourself, even in moments of failure. You move on from mistakes with grace, knowing they don't define you. They refine you. Loving yourself means fueling your body with the nourishment it deserves, strengthening your mind with positivity, and building a life rooted in self-respect and joy. Remember this, being full of love for yourself is not arrogance, it's power. The more you love yourself, the more love you have to give to the world. So stop the negative self-talk, silence the inner critic, and replace it with kindness, gratitude, and encouragement. You deserve nothing less than your own unwavering belief. Every step you take toward loving yourself is a step towards unlocking your highest potential. Let's commit to showing ourselves the same love and kindness as we aspire to share with others. Because when you love yourself the most, with no breaks, no excuses, and no conditions, you become unstoppable. Stay inspired, stay grateful, stay dialed in. Until next time, Mr. Vaccaro.
Say it, bro.
I love you, bro.
I love you, bro. I was making sure. I didn't know if you were gonna say "stay dialed in." I was like, you better.
You know how it ends.
You better have said that.
You know how it ends. Each show's gonna end right here, baby.
I was gonna say,
Right here. Yeah.